This podcast is part of the It Was a Thing on TV podcast network.
An anthology on the bad, the short-lived, and the forgotten shows and events in television history. You are listening to It Was a Thing on TV.
No, that's it. I'm not modeling anymore for the two of you. Well, I guess I just have my first taste of the filthy side of this business. You're doing great. Need I remind you, sirs, I am a male model, not a male prostitute.
Episode 620, Submission. Well, this is another one where didn't really have a submission number, so we put one in on the fly. Well, not we put it in. I put it in on the fly. Submission negative pi r squared. It is a pilot. Oh, this is going to be so much fun, this episode, talking about it. And, okay, what is it? It's the name of the show. Sounds like it's going to be a bad Abbott and Costello routine. But anyhow, it is a pilot for NBC from 1984. And here's Rod Roddy, who explains basically the entire gist of the game.
It's time to play It. Here's what It is. Happy birthday is a two-word phrase. Birthday party is a two-word phrase. The word that happy and party have in common is birthday. And that makes birthday It. Betty White is a two-word phrase. White Christmas is a two-word phrase. The word that Betty and Christmas have in common is white, and that makes white it. Funny girl is a two-word phrase. Girl talk is a two-word phrase. By now, I'm sure you know what it is. And here's the star of it, Gene Rayburn. Hey there.
Welcome, one and all, to IT It, where the object of our game is for our players to simply tell us what it is.
Rod Roddy summarized this show pretty succinctly. This is a word game very reminiscent of Before and After on Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. But what you're looking to do is find that connecting word. You've got the first word in a two-word phrase, and then you've got the second word in a two-word phrase, a different two-word phrase, and you're trying to find the item that links it together. If you had happy birthday and birthday party, the it word is birthday. That's the linking word. Betty White, White Christmas, the common word they share is white. Funny girl, girl talk. Well, again, you heard Rod Roddy say all this. I don't know why I'm repeating it for you. We said Rod Roddy is announcing this, but we didn't talk about who's hosting this. We put this on the schedule this week to make it a thematic week, a Gene Rayburn week. Gene Rayburn hosted this pilot. This is probably slightly after Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour got canceled, but before Break the Bank. So he's sort of in this period where yeah, he's not hosting the show he's known for anymore. Maybe looking for a rebound, looking for a paycheck. But also, really, at this time, think about the shows beyond Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour that Gene Rayburn hosted. He hosted this, obviously. He hosted multiple pilots for Party Line, which became Bruce Forsyth's Hot Streak. I think he was looking for a gig post Match Game in 1982. Unfortunately, he just wouldn't have that gig ever again in terms of longevity. Match Game Hollywood Squares ran about 9 months. Break the Bank, he was only there for 3 months because he got fired. And then he did other little things after that. He did some show on AMC. I think it was like the Movie Masters or something like that. Again, very obscure, but again, not the big gig like Match Game was in the 70s and early 80s. So we have the Rod Roddy, Gene Rayburn combination in this show. Round one of this game, it's really very similar to The Big Showdown in some ways. what the idea was the first 3 players out of 4 to get 300 points exactly, not at least 300 points, 300 period. If you got to exactly 300 points period, you moved on to the second round. The strategy comes into play a la the Big Showdown, where if you get to 250 points, you can only win on a 50-point question. And I should add, the way the scoring went, there were 3 frames. And what I mean by a frame is this sort of before and after, where you have 2 two-word phrases linked together by a common linking word. All 3 of these frames share the same word. So, for example, you could have mashed potato, potato salad, au gratin potato, maybe not au gratin because that's 2 words, but au gratin potato, potato chips, something like that. All 3 of these frames have the same linking word. If you get that linking word on the first frame, the first before and after, you get 150 points. If you get it on the second one, it's worth 100 points. If you get it on the third one, it's worth 50 points. So there's where the strategy comes into play. If you get to 250, you cannot score at 150, and you cannot score at 100. You have to wait for the 50-point answer. So you're essentially locked out from the first 2 tries. And that gives your opponent an opportunity to buzz in, especially if they're down. As I said, the first 3 players to amass 300 points go on to the second round. The second round is very much like the countdown round from Split Second. The first person to win 300 points, that person has to get 3 correct answers to advance to the final round. The second person to get to 300 points, they have to get 4 correct. And the person in third has to get 5 correct. At this stage, they're only given 1 frame, and they have to figure out that missing word. They get 5 seconds to fill in that missing word. If they don't get it, they go down the line. So it starts with the person who needs 3 right answers. If they don't get it right, it goes to the person who needs 4. If they don't get it right, it goes to the person who needs to get 5. And basically, you have this rotation for this round where basically the next person in line gets a chance after somebody fails to answer. And then once the person who is at the far end, the person who was the last to get to 300 points, once they miss, it goes back to the person in front. So, again, it's very countdown-ish like from Split Second. If a person gets it right, they retain control. So it doesn't go on to the next person. They keep control until they lose it. And then again, it moves down the line, repeat ad nauseum. This gets you down to 2 people, and they play in what is called the double it round. The 2 people that won in that countdown round, they played with each other for $10,000. They were not working against each other. They were now working as teammates to win $10,000. What the idea is one part of the team, they went to isolation. The other person, they were given a central word, and now they had to think of 2 words to frame that word in, the 2 bookend words, if you will. So the person who's giving these answers needs to think about what is the optimal first word in this first 2-word phrase, and then what's the optimal second word in this 2-word phrase that you can link them together. There were 5 total sets of frames here. After the answers were given, the other teammate comes out and is given 60 seconds to guess the linking words. They're shown the frames, but now need to identify those 5 words that were originally given to the teammate. Each one is worth $1,000, split equally, so $500 a piece. And if they get all 5, they split $10,000. And regardless of what happens in the bonus round, those two winning contestants went on to play another game, but against each other again with two new contestants. And supposedly, and obviously you can't really figure this out on a pilot necessarily, but if you won 5 times, you won a trip. Supposedly. The big takeaways from this series. First, there were so many technical goofs. Specifically, the set. Good heavens, was this an immaculate set for 1984? You had 7 podiums. The lower tier had 4 podiums for the 4 players that started around 1. And then there was a second tier, a little higher up, a little back towards the back of the stage, which had 3 podiums for those 3 people who made it around 2. And then the 2 winners, they didn't have podiums for the bonus round. They didn't need podiums for the bonus round. These podiums, as nice as they are, when a person advanced to the second round or the third round, the podium fell into the scenery. It sort of sunk in, disappeared. There was one instance where Gene actually took his foot to step on the podium because it wouldn't go all the way down. But also at the same time, since the podium went down, Gene could walk on the buzzers. And he actually did that once. He stepped on the lockout and you heard or whatever the sound was. And Gene's like, oh, where'd that come from or whatnot? So technologically, I think it's cool, but it's prone for goofy mistakes like that. I'm sure somebody somewhere on the electrical crew could have powered off the podium so it doesn't buzz in, or after it sinks down, something happens where it can't make any sort of goofy mistakes like that. In terms of this game, I think it's really clever, but that name sucks. It. There's got to be a better word. But also, they tried doing their own version of the Whammy. If you see this pilot, which is out on the internet, it can be found on archive.org, there's a character. The best way I can describe this character is it's got like goofy red sneakers, giant red sneakers. It's purple. It's got the word "it" on its back. It looks like sort of an alligator type of face. It's got that snout, the gator snout. And it's wearing a red and white beanie. It's weird. That also describes the show. It's weird.
So wait, Mike, you're saying it is weird?
The whole show is weird. This creature, though, is weird. Again, I think it's trying to capitalize on the Whammy, but this is not the way to do it. This is not like a lovable character like the Whammy. It's not funny. It's not entertaining. It's not good to look at. It's just a nuisance. I don't get it. Talking about the character this time, not talking about the show.
I was looking at the character in the opening animation. It is what you described, sort of like a head like a trap in the Donkey Kong Jr. game. But I noticed that his chest said "it." So I have to wonder if that is an "it."
Well, I think we sort of agreed that's what it is, but you made a good point. That does look like that sort of trap from Donkey Kong Jr. I don't even know how to phrase it, but I think you're exactly spot on there. That's what it looks like. But again, it's not visually appealing like the Whammy. It's not funny like the Whammy. It really serves no purpose besides just like doing goofy stuff on screen, but not like funny stuff like the Whammy. It's there. I'm guessing that Larry Hovis and his partner Bernstein, I think they were trying to strike while the iron's hot with the Whammy. This was a Bernstein Hovis production. I do want to say that they worked together on Yahtzee. Good heavens. That might be a show we need to cover one day. That is a mess and a half. Maybe that's what Bernstein Hovis is known for. Making messes of TV shows. And boy, we could talk about Yahtzee for some time because they had issues. Even though this did not air in the United States, it did have moderate success in England. It ran for 3 years as Tarby's Frame Game, hosted by Jimmy Tarbuck. It ran on ITV from May 24th of 1987 to July 7th of 1989. It's not half bad. I think at this point, as I said, Gene Rayburn was looking for another gig. I don't want to say this reeked of desperation, but, he was close to 70 at this point. Probably about 65. Time was not on his side, and his better days were behind him by, let's say, 3 to 12 years. Talking about 1973 to 1982 for the original Match Games run, the 70s version. Have either of you seen at least parts of this? I know Chico alluded to the It character in the open, but had either of you seen this game?
Like you said, I've seen bits and pieces of it. I also saw the bonus round where one person was trying to come up with the frames for the other person to guess the keyword word. You know what? The game itself was not bad, but the execution, God, where do I even begin? Gene Rayburn, you could tell that he was trying to do his shtick, but he came off as wooden. And then the set itself was just riddled with technical errors. I know what they were trying to do with that lowering contestant lectern, which it would have looked awesome if it worked, but it got hung up. And then there was the matter of the It character, which served absolutely no purpose.
Like I said, I think it was their attempt at the whammy when really the last thing it needed is this ancillary character who had no purpose in the game. You did not see this character run across the screen. You didn't see this character doing weird things to the words. This character was only shown going to commercial and coming from commercial and also in the open. It seemed very irrelevant. I do want to add one little side note. If you've seen this pilot, there is a contestant named Tony, and I do believe her name is Tony or Antoinette Lau. She should have looked very familiar to Gene because she was a contestant on Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour. I don't think she even got out of the first round, which is a shame. But she's been on a number of shows. Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour, obviously this. I do believe she was on one of the Jumble pilots with Richard Klein back in 87 to 88. So she made her rounds.
That's news to me that there was a Jumble pilot with Richard Klein.
You've never seen that?
No.
There was a Jumble pilot with Richard Klein. It was basically made to look like Win, Lose, or Draw. That was the big thing back in 87, 88. So it looked like somebody's living room or den or rec room or whatnot. And you had 2 celebrities and 1 contestant on each side. And it was just jumble. I mean, we know what jumble is. You had these cartoons and the mixed up words, and you had to figure out the punny answer. It's out there somewhere. Hey, maybe that's an idea for next year's pilot month, since we've filled up all the slots for this month. Just tossing that out there if Greg wants to venture to see what the Jumble pilot looked like. So that's it. Well, that's it, and that is it. That's it for the show, and that's it for... Oh, never mind. We're using the word it too many times around here. So what can we say about it? It tried. It looked really good. It also had technical issues. It had a backbone there, but I think it needed a little bit more time in the oven. Maybe it could have been something in a game show world back in 1984, but instead, it became a thing on TV. I like how I did that. It became a thing on TV. You can find us at our website, itwasathingontv.com, on Facebook at It Was a Thing on TV podcast, and elsewhere at It Was a Thing on TV. You can find us on any podcast player, and we're also on YouTube, where you can subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with our releases, including what's coming up next time. We're going to cover a pilot that we actually wanted to cover last week, but we did a little bit of playing around with the schedule, and we moved it to this week because one of the people in this pilot, he's in a movie which just got released. Something about a galaxy. I don't know.
Mamma mia!
I didn't play that game. So I think Greg kind of sort of gave it away a little bit there. But we're going to talk about this pilot. I didn't even know this existed. And I told these guys, when I saw the description of this pilot, did they legitimately think this would get on TV and this would be something even remotely believable? I'm not even going to get into the premise because it's so absolutely ludicrous. But apparently this was almost a thing like 25 years ago. I can't wait to talk about this thing. I was almost going to say, I can't wait to talk about it, but I think we've run it into the ground this episode. So you'll have to come back on Tuesday next week to figure out what we're talking about. Oh, it's going to be a good one. Thank you to Greg, and thank you to Chico, and thank you for listening to it. We'll catch you on Tuesday with that next episode.
Wow! Gentlemen, imagine being able to travel safely at incredibly fast speeds and not having to go to the stupid fart-face airports. That sounds incredible, Mr. Garrison. It is incredible, Mr. Hat, and what makes it possible is its patented gyroscope design. Gentlemen, I give you it. Ooh,
nice.
Sleek. It gets over 300 miles to the gallon and is safely capable of speeds of over 200 miles per hour.
Wow.
Whoa.
This will change everything.
We're going to have to rethink cities. Now, it is easily operated using 4 flexi-grip handles. 2 of them are on each side. Left side for throttle, right side for steering. The third flexi grip is gently inserted into the anus to keep the driver in place. There we go. Now the final flexi grip is directly in front of the driver so that small switches can be operated with the mouth, as such. Put the 4 together and we're ready to go. Oh my God!
Look at it go! But the way it works, do you really think people will go through that to travel?
Hey, it still beats what you go through at the airports.
True.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.